reading skills. In the morning, we had a session on significance and process of communication. Process part of communication will be taken up day after tomorrow. But then we had a very interesting session on significance of communication by Dr. M.P. Punia ji, and then followed by another very interesting session on classroom communication by Dr. P.K. Tulsi. And now we are having a session on reading skills. This is a very important aspect of communication. Unless until you're a good reader, you cannot be a good writer. So the four components, listening, speaking, reading and writing, out of the four components, reading is also very important component for the communication, both for the faculty members as well as for the students. Uh, there are some techniques whereby you can improve your reading skills and you can be a fast reader also. We have with us Dr. Amandeep Kaur. She is basically a civil engineer and is master in environmental engineering. She has a background of working in a uh, IT University, ITM University, Gurgaon, and presently she is working with our institute in the Department of Education and Education Management. Dr. Amandeep Kaur will be taking the session on reading skills. Thank you.
A very good afternoon to all the participants. The topic of today's discussion is reading skills. Reading skill is an essential component of a communication process. Communication process is divided into basically four different sections, that is listening, speaking, reading and writing. When we're talking about communication, the communication word comes from the Latin dictionary, that is communis. Communis means common. When an individual tries to communicate, he is trying to establish a commonness. He is trying to establish a commonness with someone else. As a human being, we start our first step of communication learning through first one is listening, then speaking, then reading and writing. In our total communication process, we spend 9% of the time on writing skills, 30% of the time on speaking skills, 45% time on listening skills, and 60% of the time on reading skills. Today, we, the group of the teachers, are discussing this particular topic, that is reading skills. Now I ask you a question. What do you think, is it relevance for a teacher to study how to develop reading skills? University of Jammu, would you like to answer the question? Why it is important for the teachers to learn how to develop reading skills?
I think it is important for us to be acquainted with the reading skills because it facilitates conceptual knowledge. The better we are at understanding our own or clarifying our own concepts, the better we will be able to communicate with our students.
Okay, thank you, ma'am. Chandigarh University. Chandigarh University. Am I audible to Chandigarh University? उनके माइक में प्रॉब्लम है. As rightly answered by the University of Jammu, we all are in a business of knowledge. And to acquire knowledge, we read a lot. Being a teacher, we read textbooks, research papers, journal articles, and in our daily life also, we read so many things like calendars, phone book, timetable, informal letters. Therefore, it is essential for all of us to know how to develop reading skills. We are reading, say from the age of 3 to 5 years, we are reading. By this time, we become professional in this skill. Then why we need to develop this skill? Being a teacher, our major responsibility is to help the student in developing the reading skills. Student must know the answer of two questions before they start reading. First one is what to read, and second major question to answer by the student is how to read in a most effective way. Now let's start our session reading skill. The two most important skills required are first one is listening and speaking. These communication skills are under the category of spoken skills. Then reading and writing. Reading and writing is covered under the written skills of a communication process. In our communication process, we spend 9% of the time on writing skills, 30% of the time on speaking skills, reading 16%, and listening 45%. Now, what is a reading? Reading is an active process that focuses on understanding the meaning of the writing. Means a process of using your eyes and mind to understand the literal as well as the hidden message of what the writer was attempting to convey. Reading is basically a delayed communication process. For example, in a verbal communication, you have to act as an active receiver. Active receiver means if you miss something, it might be possible that you are not able to understand the concept after that. But reading is a delayed communication process. In this process, we are reading the content with our on priority and with our on comfortable level. Means reading is a means of language acquisition, of communication, and of sharing information and ideas. Next is what is skilled reading process. Skilled reading is a constructive, fluent, strategic, motivated, and a lifelong pursuit concept of a reading. Constructive reading means, for example, when you are learning or reading for a reason, you are reading a book. There is a specific objective or purpose for reading that particular book. You read in a structured way. This type of a reading process is known as constructive reading process. Next is fluent skilled reading. Fluent skilled reading means when we gain mastery of the basic processes of the reading, our mind will become active. We try to find out the answers or critically evaluate the text. This type of a skilled reading process is known as fluent reading process. Next is strategic reading process. Strategic reading process means when we are reading for comprehending or reading for a specific purpose. Next one is motivated skilled reading process. Motivated skilled reading process basically represent if the written material is very informative or interesting for a reader. Last one is a lifelong pursuit. A skilled reading is a continuous process, a development of the vocabulary and knowledge of the material, or you can say content, and it's a refinement of a reading process. All these processes are considered as skilled reading process or characteristics of a reading process. Next, what is the purpose of the reading? People read for a number of reasons, whether they are conscious of this or no. not, and their reasons are generally come under the heading. First one is reading for the information, reading for the pleasure, or reading for interest. Reading for information means reading for information, for example, when you are confronted with warning signals or you confronted with your timetable, you just scan a piece of information from the timetable or warning signals. This type of reading is considered as informative reading. Reading for interest means while reading a newspaper, some people just skim through the newspaper according to their interest, or some people read newspaper thoroughly. Means depending upon the interest of the individual, he or she he or she read the whole content. And last one is reading for pleasure. Reading for pleasure means when people read for the player, they read fairly and rapidly. For example, according to your interest, when you are reading a storybook or a novel, means every reading process have some kind of objective. There are many reasons why people read, and differences in the process of reading largely depend upon the motive of the reading. But the effective reader adapt each type of the reading and does not read everything slowly. In our day-to-day life, we read so many documents like official documents, research papers, journal books, and newspaper. Means we read different kind of documents to fulfill our different objective. For example, we read official document for getting information, research paper for understanding, journal books for entertainment, and newspaper for thorough reading or for skimming. And there are some basic objective for different type of reading. These objectives are: first one is reading with comprehension. Comprehension basically means ability to read, understand, and answer. So the objective of this type of a reading process is the reader will able to understand the purpose and function of the text. Next step in this type of reading process is to study the major topic of the content or the text. Next in comprehension means able to understand the reading process. Able to understand the reading process means how the topic is developed from one paragraph to another paragraph, and able to understand the meaning of different sentences and their interrelationships. The problem faced during this type of reading process, or you can say in comprehensive reading process, the problems faced by the readers are some kind of a language problem, vocabulary problems, depending upon the extent of his knowledge and ability. And reader must be ready to acquire knowledge of new dictionary words and prepare to deal with the uncertainty of the concept or the text. Second major objective of reading is reading flexibly to suit the purpose. Reader can read the text in a different number of ways with a different speed, sometimes intensively, sometimes extensively, in order to fulfill number of the purposes or variety of the material. We choose reading flexibly to suit with the purpose. This type of the process is applicable when we developed fundamental knowledge or fundamental skill of the reading. Means for study or research paper, you need different kind of attention. While studying a textbook, you need different kind of focusing and interest for reading process. मैम चार्जर है आपका? नहीं. HP गई है. Next objective is to learn with the content from reading. For example, when you are reading a new subject, You will be able to read after selecting a relevant information that is based upon evidences and documents. Generally, we pick up main points from the mass of the detail and evaluate their importance and read indexes and headings. When you are prescribing a book to your students, you skim and scan thoroughly the book before prescribing it to your class. This type of reading is to learn the content from the reading. And last one is reading with a critical awareness. Reading with a critical awareness means to see the text objectively. For example, when you are reading an advertisement in a newspaper, you you read a particular type of information, means the reader is very subtle and biased and learning a particular point while reading that advertisement. Means so these are the four basic objectives for reading. Next one is what good readers do. Good readers make connections, visualize, infer, determine importance and synthesize. Continue करो.
कोई नहीं मैम ब्रेक ले लो 5 मिनट मैम पेन ड्राइव है आपके पास निकालिए अपना हाँ जी वो नहीं मैम जी सर देखिए मैम ये लैपटॉप है इसमें वैसे मैम वो भी चेंज करती है पहले इसमें बैठ जाओ मैम
Avast virus database has been updated.
Karan started.
Yes, yes.
Sentence connected. The next is what good readers do. Good readers make connection, visualize, infer, determine importance and synthesize. For example, when you are reading a story, the good readers make connection first. The connection can be made by three different types. First one is connection by text to text. Text to text means if the similar event happen in your life. Second one is text to life. For example, you are making connection with the word events. Text to self means text to text means. Third part is text to text. Text to text means if you are making connection with the movies, books, TVs. Make connection means to ask yourself, what do I already know about this? How has anything similar ever happened to me? How would I feel if it happened to me? Can I relate to the characteristics? And does this text remind me of something? Make connection means to connect yourself with the help of a text. These texts may be text to self, or text to life. Second part is to visualize. Visualize means picture in your mind the images the author create with his or her words. In this type of a connection, pay close attention to the sensory details. Sensory details means, for example, you think if you were there, what would you see, hear, smell, taste, touch, or feel? Visualize means if you do not picture the event in your mind, you will get bored. The author job is to paint the picture in the reader's mind, and the reader job is to visualize what the author want to say. The third major component is infer. Infer means text plus knowledge. Good reader also make educated guesses about what happened later in the story. They use the author hints to predict what will most likely to be occur. While inferring, ask yourself few questions. For example, what is not stated in the story that I figured out? What do I predict will happen? Why do I think so? Means you connect or interrelate the text with your prior knowledge in your mind. Fourth basic component is to evaluate the importance of the text or the story. Pick and choose which details are more important to remember. While reading a story or a text, think about what someone asked about this text later on. Think about what the author hint might be important later on. Why this concept is important. Anything you read contains a lot of information. You cannot remember everything, but by deciding what is important, you do not have to remember everything. You can prioritize the information according to your need in order to understand the context or text completely. Last step the good readers follow is synthesize. Synthesize is a fancy way of saying that you must bring everything together in the end. In the other words, what is the meaning of what you are reading? For this particular step, ask yourself few questions like what does it all means? What is the biggest idea behind the story or the content? Are the questions left unanswered? What are the lessons should I learn from this story? And what do I think about this particular story? Means reading is an active process where we are using our mind constantly. This kind of a reading is known as active reading. Active reading involves reading with a purpose, in order to grasp some kind of a definition and meaning of the written message. For example, to identify the meanings and to interpret various evidences, we uses active reading process. That is, reading in order to grasp definition and meaning, understand the debate, and identify and interpret evidences. It requires you to engage in reading and thinking at one and the same time. Means active reading means reading and thinking at the same time to identify some kind of key ideas, extracting the information from the text you want. Active reading includes, first one is prior knowledge, means applying what you already know. Second is responding critically to the text, means interacting with the author's point of view. Third one is to determine the importance of the text, selected text or predicting. Next, solving the problem by slowing down the process of understanding. And last one is summarizing. Summarizing you can do at end of the each page of the content or at the end of the whole content according to your convenience. These type of reading processes are known as active reading process. Next is, how do effective readers read? Effective reader read for a specific purpose or for a particular objective. They read phrase by phrase, not by word, concentrate on the important bits, skim the rest and skip the insignificant part, means they extracted useful information from the whole content. Use different speed and strategy for different reading tasks. Different speed and strategy means depending upon the particular type of the content, effective reader choose his reading style, perceive the information in the target language rather than mentally translate. Effective reader must know the vocabulary for the content he is reading, guess the meaning of new words from the context or ignore them for his continuous flow in a reading process. Next is, what are the different types of reading process? There are different type of the reading process like scanning, skimming, recalling, remembering, focused reading. First type of a reading process is known as a scanning process. Scanning process is a skip search type of a reading process where we are looking for a specific piece of information. According to the definition, scanning is a reading technique that one uses to find specific information without reading the whole text. It involves looking down and around a page quickly and efficiently, searching for the important words, facts, or phrase to find specific information. To scan means clearly define what you are looking for, decide what are the various clues which help you find the information, and use the form in which the information is to be presented. For example, while scanning articles, magazines, and chapters in the books, let your eyes move rapidly over the pages, searching for a specific information that you need. For example, if I have given you three statements: who discovered atom, describe the role of decomposers in ecosystem, or how many trophic levels in a grazing type of the food chain. While scanning this type of the information, you need to select a specific piece of information from the chapter of the book rather than reading a whole chapter. Next process or type of reading is a skimming process. Skimming means getting the gist of the material. Getting the gist of the material means when you are reading a chapter in a particular look, you have to look at summary or abstract of the chapter at very beginning, then the subheadings, last and first paragraph of the chapters, figures and diagrams. The purpose of skimming is to decide that the book or the content is suitable for reading or not, decide what are the various segments of that content or the chapter that are appropriate for your studies, and decide that you need to read all the content or not. There are three different steps in a skimming process. First step is known as previewing. Previewing means the most general look that you have given to that particular chapter. In a journal look, or when we are looking at a book or article, we are getting the general idea that what the material contained in that particular book. We scan the material. After scanning, we decided that if the content is difficult or not, accordingly we will plan to read the book in particular time period. Basically, we in journal look, we read the title of the book, date of the publication, edition of the book, and writing or specific information given in that particular book. Means we plan to read a particular book after skimming process. Next step in skimming is overviewing. Overviewing means a closer look to that particular book. Closer look means we read the introductory chapter or the first chapter of that particular book. Then what are the various sections or headings given under the further chapters of the book, and the conclusions or remarks given at the end page of each chapter. Third basic step in skimming is surveying. Surveying is a closest look to the chapter of the book. In this process, we read the first paragraph of the chapter carefully, or the first sentences and last sentences of the each paragraph of that chapter, formulate questions when we are reading those kind of paragraphs in a book. This type of processes or reading is known as skimming process. Next is focused reading. Focused reading is a purposeful type of a reading process during which you target a specific area of a study. Focused reading has two different kinds. First one is extensive reading and second one is intensive reading. Extensive reading is basically the reading for player activities. This type of reading is basically to generate general kind of information or to obtain a general information from the text. For this type of reading, it is not compulsory to understand the full text. For example, when we are reading leaflet, manuals, or any business proposal, these kind of reading activities are considered as extensive reading activities. While reading a manual of any electronic product, we need not to understand the whole concept or whole ideas. We read it for a very general type of information. Next type of reading is intensive reading. Intensive reading is basically used for the shorter type of the text. It is very necessary to understand each word, number, or fact given in this type of a reading process. For example, when we are reading experimental detail in a laboratory work, for this type of reading, we require accurate reading procedure and detailed analysis to understand what the writer wants to say. Next are what are the different techniques of systematic reading. Systematic reading techniques are known as SQ3R, where S represents survey. Survey is a general impression of the type of the book you are reading. While surveying a particular book, we look at the titles, author, date of publication, edition. Next is what is introductory chapter or summary of the book. We look at the content pages, bibliography, chapter headings, pictures, illustrations and diagrams and numericals given in the book. Basically, we familiarize ourselves with the text given in the book. Second technique is known as question. Question means when we are reading, ask yourself the purpose of the reading. Why we are reading this particular book? What are the main points we are looking for in this particular book? The basic process for questioning a particular chapter or a book is to convert all the headings into the question. Question not only before reading but while reading too, to clear your content or information. Third systematic technique is reading. Reading is to look out the major ideas and relationship while reading a textbook. We look at the examples, illustrations, and try to understand the author's point of view to clear our fundamental knowledge about that content. Focus on answering the question while reading, and while reading we make use of highlighters, labeling, and some kind of notes for our own understanding. Next is recite. Recite means recall. Try to recall all the information or all the main ideas. The best way to recite or recall the information is to write them down in your own language or recite them aloud. Last one is review. Review means to check your memory or scan portion of the material and to verify your answers from your notes. Means look back over the chapter and check that your recall was correct, and make a special note of any important point which you failed to recall or which you wrongly recalled. So the basic techniques, systematic reading techniques are: first one is survey, then question, then read, recite, and review. Next is when we're reading a subject related books. At this point of time, we are very clear that reading has two basic stages. First one is the interest and second one is focus. In the lower grade, when the teachers teach the student, they are easily ready to learn. For example, if you are going to teach them a solar system, they easily ready to memorize the concept without questioning you so much. But for adults or for college students, it is not very easy. It is not very easy to learn anything you are teaching to them. They ask you question. The college students only read those things that are relevant to you. Now my question to you is, do you prescribe books to your students, or what are the various parameters you considered while prescribing a book to your students? Chandigarh University. और कौन से सेंटर से? मांडा इंस्टीट्यूट ऑफ टेक्नोलॉजी. मांडा इंस्टीट्यूट ऑफ टेक्नोलॉजी.
Sorry. I mean, you're not audible, sorry.
Yes, sir, you are audible. So, do you prescribe books to your student, or what are the various parameters considered while prescribing a book to your students by you?
Uh, and cultural context must be taken in consideration. Second,
Second,
the level of students, the mental
while
level of
prescribing a book to your student, what are the various parameters you are considered? Am I audible to you, sir?
Yes, ma'am, I have given answer. First, mental level of students should be considered while
Mental
studying the course content. And
course,
second, the cultural background or economic background should also be considered.
cultural background,
Cultural and economic both.
cultural and economic both. University of Jammu.
Ma'am, while suggesting books, what we do is that we try and focus on the curriculum, what the syllabus is there, and what are the latest books and what are the latest developments in a particular field. And if we are also, if we have knowledge of what are the latest books in that particular field, we recommend them those books too for reading purposes.
Thank you very much, ma'am. As rightly said by you, while prescribing book to our student, we consider different parameters like syllabus, writing parameter or structure of the book, presentation. Presentation means illustration, diagram, numericals given for a particular subject, content, and examples. While reading a subject related book, the different methodologies used are: first one is a systematic reading process. The reading a textbook or a journal book require active reading process. Means you have to read and think at the same time. Next step is to skim through that text. Skimming means skimming means you do not go into much detail. You just go on the surface. Just go on the surface means what are the while selecting a book we are considering different parameters like what are the chapters given in the book, what are the various arguments developed while writing, what is the approach or you can say language in the book, focused, and then question. Question means whenever you are reading a textbook, it is for some purpose, for some objective, or for some idea. When you focus, when you are reading with a focus, you start questioning. The questions are like, what's so special in this content or in this particular book? Why we are prescribing this particular book to our students? Next is how the writer has broken the topic into simple words or complex material into simple methodology. Whether this book have something new or some latest information for the students. Next is read the text in a focused way. When you're having an interest and focus in your reading, you can easily recall or remember the content given in the book. Reviewing means critically evaluate the book. Critically evaluate the book means when we are reading a book, the critical evaluation is divided into two different parts. First one is physically evaluate. Physically evaluate means what is the format given in the book, quality of the paper and the binding, and the written material is critically evaluated based on the language, the structure of the material, the development of the arguments given in the book. The various actions required while reading a book is: first one is underline or highlight keywords and phrases. Basically, we underline the topic sentences, means important points, keywords and phrases given in the content. But while highlighting, we highlight only important and significant content. If we are highlighting too much, it can cause you to reread everything because you do not know what is important. Next step is make your own notes. After reading a book, write the total information into simple words in your own language to remember the content or specific information. Third one is read critically. Read critically means apply your mind while reading. Look for the markers that help you understand the text. For example, in books there is written as on the other hand, contrary, contrast, able to understand. These type of comparison help to understand the content very easily. And last one is explain what you have read to someone else. Means to, and while reading a book, when you're explaining the information to someone else, you are enriching your mind in terms of the content given in the book. Next is while reading a research paper. Reading a research paper is very much different from reading a book because the format is different, the structure of the paper is different, and different research paper focused on a particular type of the information. We read research paper for three major objectives. First one is reading to understand, reading to critically evaluate, and reading creatively. Reading to understand means for reading to understand we must be clear with the two different parameters. First one is the language and second one is the composition and structure of the research paper. Many students actually discourage when they read something but do not know the meaning of that content. For easily reading, check the words into the dictionary or assumed meaning from the content to some extent that your flow cannot be hindered. And composition and structure of question paper means what are the different parameters considered under that research paper. The different parameter or structural part of a research paper are: first one is the abstract. It is not advisable to read the abstract if you want a specific information from that particular research paper. If you want to save your time, then it's okay to read an abstract first. But when you are looking for a specific piece of information, it is advisable to go through the whole research paper. Second structural component part of a research paper is introduction. Introduction is basically the justification or justified statement of the problem. Third one is body of the research paper. Body of the research paper represent that how the research has been carried out. Next is results and conclusions. Results and conclusions represent finding and interpretation of that research. And last one is recommendation. Recommendations for future study or for the understanding the whole concept clearly. Next is read the research paper to critically evaluate. Means apply your mind while reading a research paper. This involves different parameters. First one is the authors. Authors belong to which institute? Institutional accreditation means seriousness or agenda of that particular research. Journal of publication means quality of the paper and to check the credibility of research paper. Research question: assume certain things, make an inquiry or build an agreement while reading a research paper. For example, if the experiment for a particular research is done only in a one stage, that experiment is a different temperature, pressure or volume condition. If it is okay for you to consider that experiment valid for your own research, means we have to assume certain things and build an argument to check the credibility of that particular research. Next is what are the various future direction. Is there any kind of the question that remain unanswered while writing or doing that particular research, and what are the takeaway message or recommendations given in that particular research paper. The action required to critically evaluate are: write down your opinion on all these aspects and write down the questions that come to your mind. Means how can you use this paper for your own purpose or for your own research? How it is going to help you in your teaching process, or can these aspects are to be generalized further, or further expansion and applications are required for this type of a research process. Basically, we apply our mind while reading a research paper to fulfill our own needs. Last step is reading creatively. What are the good ideas in the paper? Do these ideas have application extension that the author might not have thought of? Can these type of studies can be journalized further? The action required reading creatively are: think, relate to what you already know, interdisciplinary approach, and be adventurous. Be adventurous means don't be frightened, read again and again to understand the whole concept given in that particular research paper. Next is reading speed. The average reading speed of a human being is 250 words per minute. Good reading means speed plus comprehension. Speed plus comprehension means able to read, understand, and answer few questions after reading with the optimum speed. Some fast reader can read up to 500 to 600 words. While looking on a phone dictionary or contact number, we read at a speed of 25,000 words per minute. There are some techniques available to increase your speed of reading. Speed of reading is dependent upon the prior knowledge, the information of the vocabulary, and your interest and focus on that particular content you are reading. Next is what are the principles of effective reading. While reading, stay positive, it can be enjoyable. Try to understand the viewpoint of the author or make the author your companion. Pace yourself according to the difficulty level to understand the whole content. Read other sources if the assigned reading is confusing. Keep building your vocabulary. Keep dictionary handy. Next is how to become a good reader. The first step to become a good reader is to set the purpose and expectation. Means what are the major objective of reading? Evaluate the validity of the source, credibility, seriousness or agenda of the reading. Be selective and critical while you are reading. While reading, apply your mind. Train your eyes for increasing your eye span, for increasing your reading speeds. Use basic skills of skimming and scanning to save your time. Read at least half an hour a day to increase your concentration. Avoid vocalization or lip reading. Avoid using any support while reading process. Next is what are the problems that causes slow reading. First problem is the poor concentration. Poor concentration means the lack of interest, daydreaming, worrying about other problems while reading, and cannot remember what is read. Second problem is understand vocabulary. Understand vocabulary means difficult to learn new vocabulary, not sure to find the meaning of the word. It is very compulsory for all of us to learn new vocabulary for different kind of the concepts and ideas. Next is poor reading techniques. Poor reading techniques like no systematic reading process to be followed by the reader. Second one is take too long to read an assignment and cannot find main points and important details while reading. And last one is the blank mind syndrome. Blank mind syndrome means eyes just passing over the content or the words and reading without any kind of a reflection. So the reading include to seek the meaning, think hard, and to educate yourself. Now I request the centers to add or supplement anything, or you have any query about this topic.